the big story of the day is a news story out of Rochester, and this involves police officers pepper spraying a 9-year-old girl who's in handcuffs, who's already in the back of a police car. So just another, ridiculous situation here out of Rochester. We've already talked about Rochester a little bit. I want to go through this in some great detail. We're going to go through a couple articles. Then we have the body camera footage that we're going to break down clip by clip. It's about 20 minutes. We're not going to play the whole thing. I'm going to skip over some parts here and there. I want to just show you it for context, because what you see floating around on the internet right now are a lot of the clips, like the 2-minute clips. And you just, people see those 2 minutes or the 30 seconds in most situations, and they just don't know how much, how to process that. The headline sounds really bad, but is it, was it really bad? You can be the one to decide. And I think you're going to understand where I stand on this one. But let's break this down. Now, before we do, keep this in mind. There are a lot of people who, I've said this before on the channel, will sort of bundle themselves into their political ideologies. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you just sort of, put yourself into that tribe. I have done this myself. I try not to do this, where I'll put myself in one particular bundle. I'll just say, all right, well, that sounds like me. Therefore, anything that is closely connected to that bundle, I'm just going to accept as my own belief or my own ideology without giving it any critical thought. And I see this happen a lot with people when it comes to these types of issues. You'll have a lot of Republicans on one hand who will say things like, well, cops are heroes, and every single cop is out there risking their life every single day. And there's no way that they are racist, or they are, overly burdensome, or they are engaging in some form of brutality. There's no such thing as this blue shield or this blue code of silence. Everything they do is right and accurate, which has always been strange to me, because conservatives traditionally have a lot of issues with big government, right? Big bureaucracies, big agencies are sort of the worst thing in the world, because they're inefficient, there's no accountability, there's no transparency, and it's a huge problem. And I agree with that sort of categorization, by the way. But suddenly, if we're talking about the police, none of those same concepts apply. It's no longer about a big bureaucracy. It's no longer about a lack of accountability, because the police are in a different category, a different bucket. And we see these same kind of things happen out on the other side, the Democratic side, right? Every single cop is a racist. Every single cop out there wants to eliminate black people. It's been this huge, just overburdensome, problematic thing. And the police need to be reformed, and there's no accountability, and there's no transparency there. And so we got to just defund the police. Everything needs to be thrown right out the window. The whole department needs to be eliminated. Meanwhile, they turn around and they just build bureaucracy after bureaucracy after bureaucracy. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy over there as well. So when we go through these types of stories, I just want to pause and just note, this is, in my mind, something where we want to look at this with some humanity. We want to just analyze this from a human perspective, because this involves a 9-year-old girl, it involves a mother, it involves something like 9 other police officers, and they're all in a very difficult situation. And so the point of this is not to just slam dunk on either side. When I go through these stories, it's not to go out there and say all cops are bad, or all criminals are bad, or whatever it is. Right? Everybody wants to identify with one particular ideology. That's not what I want to do when I go through this stuff. I don't want to be, somebody who's slamming on race or slamming on cops. I just want to understand and dissect what the hell is going on here, where it seems okay and it seems justified to pepper spray a 9-year-old girl in the back of a car. How do we account for that? And now that we know that this thing happens, how do we improve our justice system so that this stuff doesn't continue to happen? And we don't need to go one side or the other. We don't need to say, that all cops should be believed and everything they do is legitimate and kosher, and we don't even have to think twice about it. On the other side, maybe it's not a good idea to defund every single police department and put every officer out on the streets. There's probably a solution in the middle here. And the point of going through and having this dialogue is to see if we can identify it without getting hysterical, without jumping to conclusions, without bundling ourselves into one particular ideology. So let's get into it. This is an article from NBC New York. It says here, two videos actually show Rochester officers handcuff and pepper spray a 9-year-old. 2 body camera videos, which we're going to cover today, came out on Sunday. They were dealing and restraining with a distraught 9-year-old girl who was handcuffed and sprayed with what police called an irritant. Okay, it's pepper spray. The Democrat and the Chronicle reported that prior to the release of the videos, Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren expressed her concern for the, quote, child that was harmed during the incident that happened on Friday. And she said, I have a 10-year-old child. So she's a child. She's a baby. And this video as a mother is not anything you want to see. A total of 9 officers and supervisors responded to a report of family trouble on Friday. The girl can be heard on body camera from the officers from the scene screaming frantically for her father as the officers try to restrain her. At a news conference on Sunday, the Deputy Police Chief Andre Anderson described the girl as suicidal. She indicated she wanted to kill herself and she wanted to kill her mom, she said. Okay, 9-year-old girl. Officers tried to force the girl into a patrol car, but she pulled away and kicked them. In a statement Sunday, the police department said that this action, quote, required an officer to take the girl down to the ground. So because a 9-year-old kicked an officer, there's a requirement in their police procedures that says they got to do something about it. So I'd be very curious if this requirement, quote, is actually in writing anywhere, if it says if somebody's underage, if somebody's 9-year-old, what is the requirement? Is that accurate? I'm going to doubt it. Then the department said, quote, for the minor's safety and at the request of the custodial parent on scene, the child was handcuffed and put in the back of a police car as they waited for an ambulance. Police said the girl disobeyed commands to put her feet in the car, which she did. We're going to see that, right? That's accurate. An officer was then, quote, required, and this is in quotes, I didn't quote this up, from the article, to spray an irritant, also in quotes, in the handcuffed girl's face, said the department on Saturday. So the department is putting those things in quotes and saying that. At a Sunday news conference, Police Chief Cynthia Harriet Sullivan described the irritant as pepper spray. She declined to defend the officer's actions. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that a 9-year-old to have pepper sprayed is okay. It's not, she said. I don't see that as who we are as a department, and we're going to do the work we have to do to ensure these kind of things don't happen, which I think is fair. That's what we all want to. We all want to prevent this stuff from happening. Police said the girl was eventually taken to the general hospital. She received services and all the care that she needed. The Rochester Police Accountability Board is reviewing the incident. Our community needs to see exactly what happened on Avenue B, said the PAB, which is the Police Accountability Board, Executive Director Connor Dwyer Reynolds. They have faced scrutiny since the death of Daniel Prude last year. Do you remember Daniel Prude? We spent a lot of time talking about that case, and it was really horrendous. It was really one of the most horrific cases I think we've covered on this channel, and we've covered a lot of them. We've covered George Floyd, which was also up there. We covered Rayshard Brooks. We covered Ahmaud Arbery. We've covered Breonna Taylor. We've covered a lot of them. Okay, they're all horrendous. But what happened with Daniel Prude was also out of Rochester. This was a scene from Daniel Prude. We covered this one. We have a number of officers literally, putting a hood over a half-naked, in this film, he was totally naked man on the side of the road. And then they did this plank on his body where this officer was literally leaning on his head like this, a full plank. That is Daniel Prude's head right there. And so this is happening in Rochester. And this officer is, leaning on his head. And when we went through the video on this story, it was just, horrific. You could hear him literally, collapsing. His windpipe, his head, his neck was all just being crushed by that officer for, I think it was like 90 seconds or 2 minutes. He went to the hospital. I think he sort of coded at the scene, went to the hospital. Of course, he had drugs in his system, if I recall correctly. And he passed away at the hospital. And a lot of it was sort of connected to the physical abuse that he suffered on the scene there. Okay, so that's the context. So you have to think about this, right? When we get to this current story, there is a young girl and her mom who are both African-American, as the story is going to show. And, very, very recently, middle of last year, just I don't know, 6-7 months ago in Rochester, there was another story where the Rochester police showed up, in my opinion, basically killed this guy, Daniel Prude. And, essentially, as far as I know, not much has happened as a result of that. So if you are in that situation, when the police show up, that might be a possibility. And whether you're white, black, brown, Hispanic, Asian, whatever it is, if you're in a situation where this is happening in your neighborhood, in my mind, you're going to be cognizant of that. And that's going to leave a mark. That's going to help shape your perception of what law enforcement does. This is why it's a problem when law enforcement does these things, because it's not just about that one particular family, that one particular individual. It is which is catastrophic, right, for Daniel Prude and all of that. I'm not trying to sort of mitigate the harm caused to that, but it also spreads and permeates, and it makes people trust law enforcement less and less. So we want law enforcement to do well, do good, and follow the law and not engage in any of this brutality stuff. When they do, it is catastrophic, and it trickles down. It's the first domino that will knock in a bunch of other dominoes, and it's going to lead to more and more of these types of situations. So another story we see here, it says, I want my dad. Police pepper sprayed and handcuffed a 9-year-old girl. As seen on the video, an officer walked up to a child on a residential street. The 9-year-old did not want to speak with him. He ran up and grabbed her. We're going to show you all of this here in a quick second. The woman identified in the video as the child's mother got involved. She was arguing with the girl. 9-year-old claimed her mom had stabbed her dad and that her father was holding his gut. So I want to just play you or show you some of the language that's being used because the video is sort of chaotic. And so this is what's going on. 9-year-old girl is sort of running around the street. Cop comes up to her. She says, Mom stabbed dad. Father was holding his gut. Mom said, no, blood is my own, not the father's. She denied stabbing him and asserted the father attacked her. So things escalated, and the mother got right up in the 9-year-old's face. She also says, I got custody to the child. You're my child. So you're going to get your A home, and you're going to have to take your A to the house. The officer separated them. Time passed. Police showed up. Like 8 other cops showed up. The girl called out her father as officers attempted to get into a vehicle. And at one point, you're going to see this in the clip, the officer says, you're acting like a child. And the girl says, I am a child. And then drops some profanity. The pivotal moment arrived when cops got the child mostly into the vehicle but struggled to close the door. The 9-year-old then said the handcuffs were too tight. This is your last chance. Otherwise, pepper spray is going into your eyeballs, said a female officer. We're going to play all this for you. The girl continued to plead for her father. I want my dad. She continued to cry. Just spray her at this point, said the view of another officer, a male who was on the other side of her in the car. And that's exactly what happened. He says, I got her. He added, authorities did not release the name of the child or the mother or the officers involved because the cops never get named until people do some digging. So we went through, we found the video. This is what it looks like, and I wanted to just show you this. It's a 10-minute video. Part 1 is 10 minutes. We're not going to play the whole 10 minutes, but we are going to go through it. And this is part 1 of 2, and this was on YouTube, and you can see 380 thumbs up, 1.1 thousand thumbs down, and the comments are turned off, so they're not allowing anybody to comment. This was posted over by the Rochester, New York Police Department. It's got 200,000 views as of yesterday, and it is unlisted. Okay, so people are just sharing this link. You can't find this if you go on YouTube and search for it. Same with part 2, same story, same type of metrics, same types of numbers, and so they posted this. They don't want you to comment on it. They don't want you to search for it. They don't want it to show up anywhere else on YouTube. You have to have the link. So if you want the links, we have them saved in our slides, which, like I said, you can grab over on locals. So this is, let's see, this is the 1 minute of the officer walking up. So you can see right in the middle of Rochester, ton of snow. This gal there's no sound right now. And this officer is just walking up. So this person's just, shoveling snow. And we're going to see that as they get closer to the young girl in question, the sound's going to come on, and then he starts basically shouting at her to stop. So he's just walking right on down the street, doesn't really know where, we don't really see anything or see. Okay, so there the sound comes on.
Come here. Come here. Stop. You're not in trouble. Come here.
So there's the girl walking right around the corner.
Come here.
And as soon as she turns, he's going to run over.
I'm not going to walk all the way down the street for you. Come here. It's freezing out.
Saying it's cold, it's freezing. So there he goes after her. All right. And so this is where they make contact. Now, we don't really know where she was coming from. We don't know who called 911. There was a family disturbance going on. We're going to see the mom come out of the residence here very soon. But I want you to pay close attention to this. So when I clip over to the next clip, you're going to see that, listen to the girl. Listen to what happens. The officer just comes right up to her, is running up to her at this point in time. And when he makes contact, you can hear her wince. You can hear her like almost scream a little bit under her breath. And I why would that happen? It's probably because he's grabbing the hell out of her. And if you watch closely, you can see that there's there's contact there, sort of right at the same time that she is wincing. So, this is not unusual. Officers do not like people to flee from them at all. They don't like anybody to challenge their authority really in any way. And if you do that, then they're going to let you know, especially if you're a young girl like this. He's in my opinion, I don't know if this is true or not, but you can watch and decide for yourself. Sounds like he's giving her a nice, good squeeze, grabbing the neck, grabbing somewhere that is painful, and she expresses that through her voice. So this is the next clip as he's approaching her.
No.
Stop. 247.
Okay, so we got some sensors.
247.
I got her at 76 Harris. Just start a rig.
Get off of me.
Stop. What's going on?
Get off of me.
What's going on?
Get off of me.
I'm not going to get off.
Get off.
Okay, so now
What
they're
is
kind of
going
fighting
on?
over that bag.
How can I help?
Get off of me.
No,
I
because
don't
you're
want
not
to be
going to run.
there.
Harris for the Avenue B location.
Harris, you're not going to run away from me, okay? Because I'm going to have to chase you.
All right, so they're kind of there just talking for a little bit, and he says, "You're not going to run away from me. I'm going to catch you. You know what's going on? What's going on? What's the problem here?"
Huh?
And
I'm not going.
Huh?
I'm not going.
That's fine. But what did you tell your mom?
What?
What happened? Why are you so upset?
She stabbed my dad.
Who did?
all right, so
She did? Okay.
My blood you seen off of my lip. The fuck?
No, it was not, because when he walked in.
all right, so let's play that one more time. He says specifically that she stabbed my dad. Watch.
235.
Huh?
I'm not going.
235.
I'm not going.
That's fine. But what did you tell your mom?
What?
What happened? Why are you so upset?
She stabbed my dad.
Who did? She
She
did?
stabbed my dad.
Okay.
My blood you seen off of my lip. The fuck?
No, it was not, because when he walked in the house, he was holding his stomach.
It was my blood. How the hell?
So your lip gonna bleed all the way down to your stomach.
All right, so they're getting in an argument now. She's saying, that was my blood. You know, he said, you stabbed my dad. She said, what are you, nuts? That's my blood. That is, you know, something that, you know, he hit me in the lip and then he got me in a headlock. So you're going to hear a lot of screaming back and forth about that. And then in this next clip, I'm not going to, you know, there's a lot of screaming back and forth, so I'm going to try to spare you some of the screaming. But in this next clip, what happens is the mom is coming out now and just going after this kid. So not a good situation in general, right? You know, cops are there. You know, this kid is not, you know, I would say behaving properly, but you don't know what happened on the inside. You don't know if the kid did see something like that happen. It sounds like there absolutely was an altercation that was taking place because the mom was bleeding. You know, the dad apparently had the mom in a headlock. The mom's lip was bleeding. The mom had blood all over, or I think the dad had blood all over his shirt from the headlock. And so it looks like he may have gotten stabbed. And so this little girl is just freaked out badly, right? And you don't blame her for a minute. So this cop now comes out onto the scene and is trying to calm the situation down, grabs her. Don't know if it was a wince or not or whatever that was. But now mom comes out and is not particularly helping the situation. She comes out, starts screaming at the kid. Profanity warning for this next clip.
That's why she's done.
That was
It's
not
okay.
her
You
blood.
sit there, watch this man put his hands on me all the time.
He's
all
not
the time.
Did you stab him?
No, I didn't.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he
How
did.
do you know that?
Because
Right, how do you know that?
Yes,
He was
because
right
when he
outside.
walked in the
Come to
house,
my car, let's
when he
talk.
walked
It's
in the
freezing
house,
out. Come on.
he was holding. Okay, so your
Hold on.
lip gonna
I'm
go
not-
with his blood, and
He had me in the headlock.
I'm not
So you
saying.
stabbed him?
I'm sitting here arguing with it. Yeah, until I stabbed him. I stabbed him?
Yes, you
Okay.
did.
I just put the police on him. They gonna find him.
No.
He is.
No.
They gonna find him.
Dude, just
And
come
we gonna
with me to
see.
my
You
car,
gonna- You gonna
right?
get your
Let's
ass
talk.
for sitting here lying.
I'm not.
Come on.
I'm not going to that.
First of all, Steviana, you go.
All right, so what you can't hear right there, or maybe you can, but the officer is repeatedly asking her to come to the car. Come to the car. Just come to the car with me. Come on, come to the car. She says, no, I'm not. No, I'm not going to go. I don't want to go to the car. And the officer just keeps going. So here is the rest of that.
You gonna bring your ass to this motherfucking house, and I'm gonna ask you one more time. You gonna bring your ass to this house if I yoke your ass up and drag you home? I got custody. You're my child, so you gonna take your ass home right now.
All right, so that's her. That's mom getting really close into daughter, and she's, you know, you're my daughter. Get your ass home. You know, I've got custody. I'm gonna basically pick you up and drag you home. And so here you can see mom and daughter just, you know, sort of right at each other's face. Cop standing right there. Cop to me doesn't sound particularly concerned about the stabbing because he kind of says back to mom, he goes, "Did you stab him?" She said, "No, I didn't stab him." You know, and then she starts lacing back into her daughter. So, you know, we can't see what else is going on. We don't know if there are other units that are investigating the home. We don't know, like I said, who called 911. There was a domestic disturbance going on. We don't know what's on the 911 call or what they heard. We don't know if they have anybody's names yet. We're going to hear later on in the story that they're asking about this young girl's name, and they kind of don't know what it is. And I think we hear about it at the very end of the clip, but they don't know, right? So from an officer's perspective, they could have shown up. Somebody could have gotten stabbed. There could be somebody loose with a weapon. They don't know. But this officer, in my mind, didn't seem particularly concerned about it because of the fact that did you stab him? And she says, no, I didn't stab him. So it was now sort of not the primary focus of the investigation. That had changed. Now it's about this little girl and this mom having a dispute. So let's go on to the next clip. Mom goes after the kid. We pick up right here.
And you gonna take your ass in the house.
All right, come on.
Okay, so now the cop is breaking that up.
Go the fuck in the house now.
Come on.
Okay, the little girl is crying.
Come on. Ma'am,
I wish you might.
if you want my help, just get up.
I wish you might.
Mom grabbed the backpack, is walking back inside.
Stop.
Who the fuck is you talking to like that?
Get away.
Who the fuck is you talking to like that?
So that's
Who
Mom's.
is you talking to like that?
No.
Come on, you gotta come with me. You gotta come with me.
Mom screaming at the kid.
I'm not.
Come on, dear. All right, listen, do me a favor.
gotta be fucked
Do me a
up.
favor. Go back to the house. All right?
All right, so Mom goes after the kid. Cop tells her, go back inside. You need to, leave us alone. Mom's in the face. Who you talking to like that? F. Not a particularly good situation. Then we get to the next clip, and there are bystanders
You're not running away
poking
from
around.
me. You're not running away.
So the kid is still trying to break free.
Come on.
Can I help ya?
Come on.
Neighbors are coming through. Bystanders are walking up. Mom is screaming at the bystanders and at that car that was driving by.
Come on.
Can I help you?
Can I help you? Can I
All
help
right,
you?
let's go. Stop. Enough.
Can I help you?
Enough.
All right, so that just kind of hangs out. They're sort of the cop is still dragging the little girl down the road to continue with the investigation and the arrest here shortly enough. And then a second unit shows up. Let's take a look here.
Stop.
Okay. All right, the body camera falls off right now. So the little girl, there's a second unit.
Stop.
Okay, so
You gotta tell this officer where you told me.
screaming for dad. I want my dad. I want my dad.
247, we don't need you here. Hey! Get back in your house!
Going to assist.
No. I want my dad.
You're not gonna run off.
I want my dad.
So she's very upset.
Stop.
I want my dad. I'm not getting in no car.
She says, I'm not getting in a car, so body camera falls off.
I want my dad. No.
She's kicking the cops. Body camera still on the floor. We got two grown men who can't control a 9-year-old girl.
Okay. Wait, my mom, she's pregnant though.
You done?
My mom pregnant. Oh yeah.
She's saying, my mom's pregnant. My mom's pregnant.
I want my dad.
Okay, so you hear the handcuffs. They just went on.
I want my dad. Please.
Cop looks down, grabs his body camera.
Lost for SR.
Other neighbors are walking by.
I'm still trying
Wait,
to play.
please. You go help my mom.
driving
She's
by.
pregnant.
Go help my mom. She's pregnant, little girl says. And she's basically in the snow right now. So we have this officer here who is, one of the two who showed up on the scene. His body camera fell off. That's him looking back down at the camera. And then this is a little girl. So she's down in the snow. She's sort of in handcuffs at this point in time, laying on the ground. And then she's still calling for her dad. The second unit shows up. And then we pick it back up in this next clip.
Please.
Let's go.
Okay, so
Get up.
I want my dad.
Get up.
I want my dad.
Okay, so she's just drenched in snow, covered in snow.
I want my dad.
I got one car out here.
All right, and now the body camera goes black. Okay, now listen. It's still playing, but it just went black, and it actually stays black for about 2 minutes. So let's just listen in on some of the audio that was not visible. So I think the officer, put his body camera on in reverse, or he's got it covered, but it's still recording.
Okay? What are you doing? What are you doing? Because you're going to go to jail now, too.
Cops yelling at someone else, you're going to go to jail now, too. All right, so that goes on for about 2 minutes, and the cop is, you can hear her yelling. She's still screaming, "I want my dad! I want my dad! I want my dad!" And another officer is saying, "Listen, if you don't do something, you're going to go to jail too." I can hear him screaming that in the background, and then we get about 2 minutes go by, and when we come back, you're going to see that like 9 cars are there, 9 other police officers. So like half the department comes just rolling in there. Oh my gosh, we got a 9-year-old we can't control. Everybody show up. And that's what happened. So this is coming out of the dark. This is coming out of the black body camera. And then we see sort of what the situation looks like. All right, so I'm not sure why that didn't play. Let me try that one more time. Okay, so there it comes out. And look at the scene. Now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 officers.
Mom to jail too.
We're going to take mom to jail too, is what they said. Neighbors are out. Multiple police are now there for a 9-year-old girl and mom. Maybe a stabbing. We don't know.
Her hands are freezing.
Look at me. Look at me. Don't look anywhere else.
Get in the car. I'm done telling you. Get in the car.
This is it, hon.
Okay.
Get in the car.
All right.
247.
All right, so you could see there that there is now a female officer on scene. So for about that 2 minutes of the blackout of the body camera, there are other officers there. So presumably many of them also have body cameras. We can't see that yet. But what we're going to do is we're going to clip over to the next video, which is part 2. So part 1 is them basically getting her into the car. Then we're going to pick it up from a different officer, from a different body camera. And you can see what I'm counting here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the one side. On the other side, there are a number of other officers there as well. So let's take a look at this next clip and see what's happening here. Little girl is still screaming. We have about 6, 7 guys there. And we have a female officer who's now working with a little girl.
Yeah, I'm good. Just need a neighborhood check. Mom's out here. Mom's out here trying to fight people driving by.
I'll go right now.
129. She's the one that called originally.
Okay, what do you want, a depot or what?
Okay, mom called originally, they said.
I'm ready to take mom.
I'll take mom. Stress and I'll go around.
All right, so did you see what happened? I'm ready to take mom. That cop just goes right off to go get her.
I mean, I really...
All right, so that one officer says, well, I'm ready to go get mom. Other cop says, I'll go get mom. No problem. He just showed up. Probably has no idea what the hell's going on, but he's antsy to go make an arrest. So he's going to go get mom, and then we're going to go around the other side of the car. So remember, the little girl is now on the driver's side of the vehicle. There is a female officer who's now sort of working with her, to some degree, trying to get her in the car. She's in handcuffs. She's got a bunch of snow on her. At some point in time, she says, hey, I'm covered in snow. Can you get the snow off me? And the officer says, yeah, we'll work on that. So there's this. Now we have a different body camera from a different officer who's coming around the other side of the vehicle on the driver's side.
You gotta tell this officer.
I want my dad. I'm not going nowhere. I want my dad.
We don't need you here.
Hey, get back in your house.
Okay, so you see.
Go have a seat.
No.
All right, so.
I'm not gonna run off.
So I jumped the gun on this a little bit. So when we go to the second clip, we actually back up in time. So now we're going back. So this is the other officer. Remember when she was first arrested or first put in handcuffs and sort of thrown into the ground, there were 2 officers there. We only saw the one. Now this is from the angle of the other cop. And so what we'll see here is his perspective. We're going to go through the same sequence of events. So she's going to be back down on the ground, and then the other cop is going to go talk to the other guys, and then we're going to pick it right back up. So this is where we are.
You're gonna be fine. Stop.
I got
I want my dad. I'm not getting in no car till I see my dad.
Here, just stop for a second.
I want my dad.
Control 47. I'm in the.
I want my dad. No.
Stop. Don't kick us, dear.
Stop! Oh my God!
Stop, dude. Just relax.
Okay.
You
Wait, my
done?
mom, she's pregnant.
Are you done?
My mom
Are you done?
pregnant.
My mom's pregnant.
Stop.
I want my dad.
Stop. You're.
Please.
You good?
Give me
Good
a
for son.
I want.
I know.
All right, so we just keep moving on, and then we're going to see this other officer. Now, this is when this is back from the perspective of one officer is coming on. They're putting her in on the driver's side, and another officer goes around to the passenger side and is trying to sort of pull her in that direction.
You've had your chances.
What are you doing? Okay?
You've had your chances.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Because you're going to go to jail now, too.
I want my
Have a
dad.
seat,
Wait,
dear.
I just want to see my dad, please. For the last time.
Get
I
in the
want my
car.
dad.
Get in the car.
I demand it.
I don't care what you demand. Let's go.
She's got her leg underneath my car.
Stop! I want my dad. I want my dad.
Stop or you're gonna get yourself hurt.
Stop! He's hurting me. I want to. Oh my God!
Then get in the car.
Please help somebody.
9 years old, folks.
You want me to grab it from the other side?
I want my dad. Stop!
Sit her up.
Stop!
Sit up.
No!
You're acting like a child.
I want to.
Stop.
I am a child. The fuck!
I just went back to the house.
My arm! I have a bad arm.
Stand up. Stand up.
All right, and you may not have heard that, but the officer says, "Stop it! You're acting like a child." And she says, "I am a child. What the?" And she drops it. Right, 9 years old. It's like these cops have never dealt with somebody who didn't want to get in the back of a car before. Imagine if this was a grown-ass man. What would they do? Shoot him? At least she didn't get shot. It's mind-blowing to me that they had this much difficulty working with a 9-year-old. Let's go on. We're not even at the good part yet. The horrible part. By good.
I have a bad arm.
Then stand up.
So this goes on. Take a look at the time down here. We're at 15:50:12.
I can't hurt. She's on the ground.
And so they're spending about a minute at this point in time.
Stand up.
Girl officer. I'm right here.
You're gonna get sprayed.
I want a girl officer.
Stand up.
Stand up.
I want a girl.
Okay, she's almost in the car. Those are her hands right there. Her hands are behind her back. She's handcuffed.
Can you let go over? I got her. I got her.
The female officer says, "I got her."
Let go, but you gotta stand up. Stand up. Will you stand up for me? Will you stand? Hey, look at me. Stand up.
I can't the way I'm sitting.
I can't move the way I'm sitting. I can't stand up. Okay, her arms are now up.
My arm.
A little bit more.
Look. Good, there you go.
Okay, there she is. Her butt's in the seat.
It's okay. I know. Go ahead.
Are you
Sit
gonna?
back for her. Sit back for him. Okay?
I'll let go if you're
Sit back
gonna
for him
stop.
so he doesn't pull you, okay?
Oh my dad.
I'll find your dad, okay? But you need to sit back. Put your foot here
No,
and sit
I
back.
want my dad.
All right. And so she's still screaming for her dad. "I just want my dad." Her butt is in the car now, in the back of the police cruiser. She's in handcuffs. Her hands are literally behind her back. Her butt is seated on the seat. And there's a female officer on the other side of her. There's another officer on the passenger side. And they're sort of trying to negotiate about her getting in the vehicle. Then we're going to hear from the female officer who says, "Hey, this is your last chance. Otherwise, you're getting pepper spray, and it's going right in your eyeballs." Listen to this.
Get your dad, okay? But you need to get warm, otherwise you're gonna get hypothermia. So sit back, okay? I'll get your dad, I promise.
My dad.
Is he here?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll find him, okay? But look at me. I can't find your dad until you sit back and I can close the door, okay? I will find your dad, so sit back. I promise. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Don't look anywhere else. I
Get in
promise.
the car.
Okay?
I'm done telling you. Get
This
in
is
the
it.
car.
This is it, hun.
Okay, her butt's still in the car.
Get back in the car
You
then.
gotta sit back.
Too hard.
He won't do it if you sit back. Come on.
What the heck am I doing?
We'll fix them once you sit in the car. Come on.
I want my dad.
Come on. I'm gonna pepper spray you and I don't want to. So sit back.
I'm going to pepper spray you. I don't want to.
Come on.
I want my
This is your
All right. And that was the last chance that she gets. Now what happens?
Come on, please sit back. Sit back. Come on, put your legs in. It's your last chance.
Last chance.
Last chance. I'm going to go get your dad. Come on.
I want to call him.
I will call him. Sit back. Come on, they are losing their patience. Okay?
They're losing their patience. It's been about 3 minutes.
Come on, good job.
Look at the time.
We're almost there. Come on.
I want my dad.
152.40.
I don't know her name. What's her
Bradstreet, what's her name?
So
name? Sit back.
Dear, why, you just stop for a second and take a deep breath. Hey, just stop.
Please. I will get your dad.
No,
Otherwise,
you said that you were going to pepper spray me. No, please, no, stop.
now she's scared that they're going to be pepper spraying her.
Just spray her.
No, I have
Just spray her at this point.
Just spray her at this point. There it is.
Dear. I got her. I got her.
Please, wipe my eye. Wipe my eye, please.
9-year-old girl begging.
Unbelievable.
9-year-old girl begging. Wipe my eyes, please. Just wipe my eyes, please, please. Okay, they took about let's look at the time here on this. 15:53:26. What time did she go in the car? About 15:50, right? So it's been about 3.5 minutes, and that was too long. They were losing their patience over that, and so there's nothing else we can do. She's 9. She's not listening. We gave her commands for 3 minutes. I mean, we didn't really even try to talk to her at all. Sit down. Hey, let's go sit down over here. Let's sit on a chair. Let's talk this through. Nope. You've got 9 officers just picking up a 9-year-old girl who is completely distraught because she thinks that her mom just stabbed her dad in the stomach, and she's now being surrounded by a bunch of officers in the same town, the same location in New York, where they, in my opinion, executed a different guy, right? A guy by the name of Daniel Prude for suffering from a bad situation. Okay, he was somebody who was not dangerous. He was naked, and they still killed him. And now they're living in the same circumstance, and they're being approached by 9 different police vehicles with 9 different officers in a horrendous situation, and they can't even negotiate or deal with a 9-year-old girl. Takes them to 3 minutes, and they get frustrated enough and they pepper spray her. These are the officers who were there, who were just standing around. We've got some serious bad popo over here. This guy's a bad officer. This guy's a bad officer. This guy's a bad officer. This is a bad woman. And I'm not particularly happy with all of them. They were standing around, and she just pepper sprayed them because they couldn't get her feet in the car. And that's it. And you said, oh my gosh, as soon as they shut the door, wow, what an ordeal that was. My question is, what would these people think if this happened to their kid? Would they treat their 9-year-old that way? Would they, have, when they were throwing a temper tantrum, when they were having a meltdown, when they're having, let's say, a mental health emergency, when you're in the middle of a situation and your mind is just not functioning because there are dramatic things happening around you, like somebody potentially being stabbed or, half dozen police cars showing up. Let's add into that the fact that you happen to be 9 years old and you don't know anything about how the world works. Maybe there are some other ways to think through this. So, I get very angry when I see this stuff happen. This is not good for anybody. It's not good for these officers. I don't know why they continue to think that they can act this way. There was a 9-year-old girl there, and they were just treating her like a hardened criminal, like this person was responsible for murder or something like that. And they had to pepper spray her and throw her in the back of the car. So I have a lot of problems with these officers. I don't know how you can kind of stand there on the side of the road and watch your fellow man be so inhumane to another person, another human being, and just go, another day on the job out here in Rochester. Seems pretty troubling. So after the fact, we hear from the police union. And of course, the police union does what the police unions do, and they get very defensive over everything that took place. Here is this guy by the name of Mike Mazzeo on the officer who pepper sprayed a 9-year-old girl. This is what he says.
I can't tell you anything about him. He came to the scene shortly thereafter. They were trying to get her into the car and made a decision. He made a decision there that he thought was the best action to take. It resulted in her no injury to her. Had they had to go and push further and use more force, there's a good chance she could have been hurt worse. It's
Yeah, they could have shot her.
very, very difficult to get somebody into the back of a police car like that. And she's 9 years old. Imagine what happens when we have a full-grown individual.
Yeah, you shoot them.
You talk about the psychological impact on the officers, but what about the psychological impact on the 9-year-old girl who had to deal with this traumatic situation?
How about the traumatic situations that she's been dealing with? Did you listen to the words that her mother was saying to her? That's what's sad. That's what's disturbing. That's what officers go home and say, how does that girl have a chance in life? What's that officer supposed to do? What can they do? You know what? Understand how we respond to situations. Let me go from a man with a gun call, to a traffic accident, to a family disturbance, to another incident. After this, those officers probably had to go on to several other calls that night. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. Some of those officers probably didn't get a chance to even discuss it until when? Hours later?
Yeah, or maybe they just don't think that way. You know, I shouldn't have called all those officers bad officers. I was trying to make this not particularly political or too volatile. You know, this in my mind is just a product of the circumstance, of the culture, of the environment that we allow we cultivate law enforcement to follow. As he just said, you know, this was just another day in the job, right? They may not have even talked about it. They may not have even, this wasn't even a big deal to them because they probably did it 5 more times with other people the rest of the day. And, you know, it's hard to sort of blame somebody for following the rules of their job. You know, the police department, many people look at a police department like these are heroes, and there are some heroes in police departments and police forces. And so, you know, you work hard, you become an officer, you want to serve your community, and then you get thrust into this culture, into this environment where this type of stuff is acceptable. This type of stuff is looked, you know, favorably upon. Like, oh my goodness, that was just a doozy. You know, if you ever, you know, I used to cater before I went to law school, and I would, you know, we'd cater and we'd all just sort of, you know, have a hell of a night, super busy, just grinding. We'd all sit down at the end of it and go, whoo, man, that was another one. And you don't really think about what you did for the last 6 hours, right? About serving food, delivering entrees, delivering, you know, all these things. And now you're just kind of done. You just go, whoo, wow, that was a doozy. I'm sure you've experienced those types of things in your life. And, you know, the same thing is happening here with these cops. They just kind of go about their business. And so, you know, they are doing their job, I would guess, to the best of their ability. And it's probably not something that I should be so quick to rush to judgment on, but I am concerned by people who just sort of allow the humanity to be evaporated from within them. To see a 9-year-old girl with like 9 people standing around there, and they all come to a conclusion that pepper spraying is a good situation, is a good thing to do. Something in my mind would have to, I think, disconnect or be unwired in order for me to go, yeah, that's a good idea, right? You know, that's okay. Let's go ahead and do that. How old is she? 9? That's good. Because if she was 8, wouldn't have gotten the pepper spray. 9, though, that's fair. And, you know, it is difficult to get somebody in the back of a car. Well, maybe the alternative should be don't put her in the back of a car. Why are these policies, you know, why are there these requirements that we just saw from the police department? They responded to the news and said, no, this was required. We had to hit her with an irritant because protocol says so. Well, why the hell does the protocol say that? Shouldn't there be an exception for a 9-year-old girl, or let's say, you know, anybody who's under not double digits? Is that a fair line in the sand to draw? If you're 10 and above, you get the pepper spray. But if you're only single digits, no pepper spray for you. Can we modify the police department policies for this stuff? It is grotesque behavior. I do not think that these officers would want their own children to be treated this way, and it is totally inappropriate. Now to see a police union guy who's standing in front of one of these, you know, blue shield flags over here. Blue shield over here. I'm not sure if this is the American flag with the blue shield. Drives me bananas. You know, it's almost like there's this sort of cult that exists amongst law enforcement officials where as long as you're on the inside of it, you always got to circle the wagons. You always got to, you know, shield yourselves up. And we see the same thing here happening with the police union officials saying, well, Could have been worse. Well, what about her mom? You know, maybe we shouldn't have pepper sprayed her, but they made the best decision that they could. And what about her mom, by the way? Her mom was pretty aggressive, right? So, you know, I guess the police want to give parenting advice now. Like they get to come in and tell a parent how to raise their kid or how that works. I'm not condoning the mother's language or the mother's behavior, but nobody asked the police department for their parental opinion either. They are there to diffuse a scene, and in my opinion, they made it dramatically worse. That little girl is going to be scarred for life, in my opinion, rightfully so, because what happened to her was egregious conduct, and the police who were involved, they don't name who it was. I think I just saw an article that they were suspended, you know, probably with pay, probably not going to be any repercussions for this, probably not going to be any policy changes for this. They're just going to let this thing fly under the radar. We'll see if we hear any more of it. The Rochester mayor did call for change. We hear this all the time from everybody. Change. We got to change everything. Well, what the hell are we changing? Okay, I've had many proposals for how we can improve the justice system. Many of them. I've gone through them at length a long time ago, about 6 months ago, when all of the summer unrest was happening. I was wondering, we saw a lot of activity. For a long part, for a lot of my time as a criminal defense attorney, I was for the first time excited to see that enough people were sort of, you know, angered about what we see happening in our justice system and demanding change. But then that demand for change sort of bubbled over and it spilled out into, you know, torching buildings and just burning down restaurants and used car dealerships and things like that. That was a major bummer. That was not the type of change that we were hoping for. And I think it set back the criminal justice reform movement by, 20 years if I had to guess. There was a lot of momentum in this country after George Floyd was murdered, and we were seeing people sort of align and unify and say, you know what, maybe this police department thing is maybe it's time to just revisit it a little bit. We haven't had, significant crime bill since Joe Biden passed his crime bill in 1994. It's been sort of incremental policy changes since the 90s, and maybe it's time to revisit it. And things were moving in the right direction. Everybody was calling for change. And then suddenly the movement got co-opted, and now people started burning buildings down. And I think there's even still remnants of that percolating throughout the country, which is a problem. And now we have another mayor calling for change. Is anything going to happen? Who knows? Here she is.
Don't know what it's like to be a cop, but I know what it's like to be a mother.
The mayor calling these actions unjustifiable, calling for change from within.
That feels that at every turn, there's harm, there's hurt, and undervalue. I know what it's like. And I'm asking for everybody, all of us, to understand, to hear, to listen, to empathize, but most of all, to act differently.
Differently, something RPD interim chief and executive deputy chief say begins with internal review.
Yeah, all right, enough of that crap. I'm so sick of this internal review crap. So sick of it. She's the mayor. She's got some political power. How about the legislature take some action on this stuff? I'm so tired of the internal reviews. The police are going to investigate themselves. Let me give you a sneak preview of what they're going to find. They can make improvements. Wow. Okay. Congratulations, boys and girls. You can make improvements in your department. Okay. So you're going to implement those departments and you're just going to go back on about your business. In other words, the police are going to investigate themselves and find that they did nothing wrong. We have some room for improvement. We always have room for improvement. We're sorry that the tensions, bubbled up so much, and we're going to try better. And the mayor is going to go out there and give this impassioned speech or change and understanding and all of this stuff. And nobody's going to do a damn thing that's going to fix the justice system. I've got proposals for it. If anybody wants a proposal, they can go back and look at any of my videos from last summer. There's many proposals about different things that we can focus on that will ultimately improve the system, but nobody wants to take it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. Why? Because there's too much political baggage. The police unions have their fingers on all of the levers of power. The police have the city councils in the bag. Okay, I was going to use a different phrase, but they have them in the bag because the city councils need the police to patrol the cities, and the police have a monopoly on the use of force. They have the unions, and they have a lot of power. They can dictate the contracts between the city councils and the police unions. And so nothing ultimately gets changed. The politicians don't want to anger the police or the police unions. The police unions want to protect the cops, even the bad cops, even the cops who are responsible for the type of garbage that you saw. They will just allow them to continue and to exist because that's what unions do. They protect bad cops. That's just one man's opinion.